Coach, given the depth you guys have at receiver, is it tougher losing Devin as a person, as a leader, as a quality guy, than it is losing him as a player, or are they equally the same in terms of the toughness?
Well, I mean, yeah, you don't even the depth, all that stuff. You don't. There's not a lot of that talk of that initially, just in terms of, particularly with him. I mean, that's like getting struck by lightning twice. Of just of how that occurred, and I mean, it's the physics of that. I want to know the odds of how. It's just incredible. Very unfortunate for him personally, and he's a guy that is revered around here, and he'll bounce back. How great of a guy is that? Is he's apologizing after the game. That kid's apologizing after the game for it to happen, and very unfortunate. Obviously, he and Tyrell we won't have them on the field this year, but there'll be huge integral parts of rallying everybody up. And as far as the football is concerned, we move on.
Do you expect that to play again here?
Don't know.
What does the outlook look like for Royce, and how much he'll play on Saturday, and if you guys will rely more on the backup running backs?
We'll see. He looked great today, and we'll see. Believe a lot in those other guys too.
Dakota and Darren perhaps don't have the chemistry that Darren and Vernon Adams had last season. With the chemistry between a quarterback and receiver, is there something you can do to work on that in practice, or is that just kind of extra reps afterwards?
Well, that's every rep of practice. That's one thing just in terms of some of the execution things. Every rep matters. And so, how we practice the quarterbacks and the receivers, wideouts, tight ends, everybody, sometimes they're separate, working individually with each group, and sometimes they're all together. But the route timing always has to be consistent, always has to be live, always has to, have that urgency of a game deciding whatever 2-point conversion or a game deciding play, and that's one of the hard lessons of a game like that is we're a half second here, a yard there, or a tip, whatever it may have been, and every one of those lessons that you harp on as a coach is it hits home that much more. And so hopefully we will respond well. We have responded well to this point. Our guys worked very, very hard yesterday and today, like their urgency, like their volume. A lot of times after a loss, it's very quiet in terms of when you get back out there, but they have stuck together and competed really well.
Mark, you talked about Sunday and Saturday too, about coaching the guys up after all the mistakes and penalties and so forth. How much time is actually spent, maybe yesterday and today, teaching rather than just doing your normal practice? Do you spend a lot of time? Do you have the time to teach?
Well, you always have to take advantage of teaching, whether it's in position meetings. We do some basically walkthroughs on the field that are interspersed within our body of practice, and so that's a huge time to do that. We have a team meeting after every game, win, lose, or draw. Well, I guess you can't draw anymore, win or lose, and talk about why things happened. Sometimes you're lucky. The week before we get beat inside 3 times, 3 guys in the red zone get beat inside, and they get lucky because it's a bad throw. And then last week, so we're hammering that home, and then the next week you get a PI doing the same thing. And so, again, it just it kicks you in the gut a little bit more in the face of a loss, but the teaching that occurs every single day.
A couple of years ago in 2014, you guys lost Fisher for a few games. It really seemed to have a ripple effect throughout the line. Do you expect that this group is maybe better equipped to absorb the loss of your top left tackle than that group was?
Sure hope so. We always work a lot of guys at different spots. There's several guys there that can play multiple positions. Center obviously is a place where you need a bunch of guys, but then our guards, whether it's Jake Pisarcik, Doug Brenner, Cam Hunt, those guys can all play center, and so that's really good to have that many guys that are multiple. And then the tackles that have played, as well as again Cam and Jake Pisarcik could all play tackle. So there's probably a little bit more versatility right now. Throckmorton. In the future, I think he'll be one of those guys. Brady Aiello, I think, will be one of those guys. Probably not there yet, but very encouraged by how they've improved each game.
Colorado the last 3 or 4 years has struggled to just stay competitive with some teams, but this year it seems like they've really turned a corner. What are you noticing on film that's different, that they're doing well opposed to the last few years that they didn't?
Yeah, defensively they've been outstanding. Obviously the Idaho State game is the outlier. Idaho State, I think they had 96 yards of total offense or something like that, and so that'll help the stats. But they're really good defensively and have been for the last several years. This year, I think they're significantly different and better, both offensively and in special teams. Special teams bit them a little bit last week. One of them is just Peppers being him, and then the other one, the punter, just kicked it into one of the punt team members, and so those two plays were huge after being out to a 21-7 lead. But yeah, they're playing with a bunch of confidence after that Colorado State game and that Idaho State game, and then jumping out on Michigan.
The 95 for Colorado, Derek McCartney, he's out for the year. What was his influence on that defense, and how do you see that changing when he goes out?
I don't think it'll change him much. To be honest, I don't know what his. I mean, he's a very good player. I don't know exactly what his leadership role, all that stuff. I'm not sure. But they had a guy that was suspended that's coming back in that exact same spot that they were very high on coming into it. And then they've got a bunch of versatility with what they do with their defensive backs. They've got a couple corners that play kind of every outside linebacker, nickel, dime position. They're really good, and they're bigger guys. One kid I think is 220, and the other guy's listed as 206, 205. So they're thicker guys.
Have you guys spent a lot of time this week already sort of fine-tuning the 2-point play you do with Charles, and do you feel like it's progressing to where it can be more consistent, and do you still plan to keep being as aggressive with that as you have been so far this season? We
install that tomorrow, and so that's in our normal game progression will be Wednesday, and yeah, we will install that like anything. We're whatever, if we have a route that needs an adjustment of things that are going on, whether it's the execution of it, the decision-making process of it, we'll always fine-tune those things. Sometimes that involves personnel. Sometimes that involves taking decisions out of different realms. But absolutely, we will continue to do that.
I know you mentioned on Saturday that you guys noticed in the offseason or decided that Charles Nelson's skill set allows you to maybe do some certain things with this, but is there anything mathematical you guys have figured out where going for 2 over the long haul can actually give you a decided edge?
Well, there's both sides of that. I mean, there's certain, obviously, if especially in the Nebraska game, we wanted to put pressure on their quarterback. We wanted him to have the psychological pressure of a lead. And again, the looks and the first 2 looks that we had were perfect. The second one, we obviously need to coach better. Perfect. The third one was perfect. And so again, we need that's what I was saying the other night. We need to coach it better. And the mindset of that, again, that would be like if we throw an incompletion, we're never going to throw the ball again. And that's not how we're going to operate. Are there things that we can do fine-tuning and different? Sure, absolutely. And again, we'll do that tomorrow. That's how we always do different special teams today and tomorrow.
And then what do you tell Aiden in those situations when he doesn't get used at all? Do you just let him know, hey, this is what we're doing, or does he just find out when you call it at that moment? Yeah, we've done this every single week for 9 years, 10 years, and the same operation that we need to do better. Same logistics.
Mark, you talked about the guys being different yesterday and today in practice, maybe a bit more quiet. Are some
they weren't as quiet.
Yeah. Are some of the leaders stepping forward in these first couple of days of practice and being a bit more outgoing as far as leadership goes?
I think so. Yeah, and I think just the urgency of. I mean, I showed 2 plays in our team meeting. The first touchdown for Nebraska, we're gonna sack Tommy Armstrong. I don't even think he's going to be able to throw it away. And we had a guy blitz that wasn't supposed to blitz. And there's not one person on defense with a hand signal, any communication, anything. And then the next play, you could see every single guy on defense, correctly doing what they're supposed to do, communicate, and it's a tackle for loss. And just, that difference, that's the kind of stuff where they're extremely frustrating, very correctable, and impactful. And so I think, hopefully that rings true going forward.
Johnny, Johnny had that speech after the game at Nebraska, and he said it was to tell the team not to let that loss define the season. Did you know he was going to do that, and what kind of response did you see from the players when he gave that speech post game?
Yeah, I think Johnny has a lot of respect, from his teammates, and I think there's a lot of guys that said the right things after practice, and then the key now is doing the right things, and they've done that thus far. We had a very good Monday, we had a solid Tuesday, and now have to back it up tomorrow and show up on Saturday.
Andrew?
It looked like on Devin's injury, it was non-contact, just kind of a unfortunate fluky thing. But was there any hesitation on your part when he asked, putting back on special teams, to actually do that and let him run down 50 yards and try to hit a guy, or is that something he really lobbied for?
Yeah, I was gonna say he wouldn't let that happen. He's one of those guys that wants to be in everything, and he probably wouldn't have played football if that would have been on the table. And I think you weren't in here when we were talking about that before. I don't know. I want to know from some physicist what the odds are of that happening twice, very similarly, non-contact. Just incredible. And again, to speak to the character of that kid, again, I don't think you were in here. He's apologizing after the game. I'm sorry. I'm just going. When you're having those moments with a guy that you care a lot about, that's tough, and feel for him.
Andrew?
He will be back.
Maybe just answer my question. I wasn't here, obviously, but have you talked to him the last day or since the weekend about whether he's leaning toward playing football again one day, or if hasn't even been discussed yet?
Haven't discussed that at all. He was the first guy out at practice today, and that was one thing that I challenged him to do, of going forward, again, the credibility that he has on our team, and the type of person he is. He's got to be an emotional leader for us with a bunch of young guys, a bunch of immature guys at various spots that he kind of has influence with. We need that, and we need his impact still. He's going to go. I think he's going with the Olympic team to go to the White House or whatever, and so we'll give him a little pass for that, and then come back and help out.
You mentioned a minute ago about the players making mistakes on defense and how they're correctable. Is the defense through 3 games where you expected to be, behind where you expected to be, ahead of where you expected to be, with all the differences and changes you guys have made with the scheme, new coach, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, again, right, yeah, incomplete. It's always incomplete. I think as a coach, sure, you want to shut out every game and, 0 for everything on third downs and 100% in the red. All those things haven't happened yet, and that's kind of the chase of being a competitor. The chase of being a coach is you're trying to make that happen faster than they think is possible. And so again, just a bunch of very correctable things. A couple of those conversions, 2 of the touchdown pass. We couldn't be in a better call. Now we need to understand why we're in that call and what we're doing, exactly where we fit. And as soon as they kind of let themselves just play and get out of the way of that extra layer of thinking, it's going to happen. It's going to click.
Mistakes par for the course at this point.
Well, we want birdie for the course. We don't want par. We don't want normal.
Andrew?
I'll definitely take bogeys.
You'd said on Sunday that this generation of players maybe needed a little more kind of kick to get focused, sometimes after a loss more so than after a win. Arion Springs agreed with that, but why this generation? Is that something you've seen in all your years kind of recruiting? Are things changing
restart, man.
with athletes?
Press restart. You just play the game, and if you're down, you restart. And that's not how life works, and there is no restart button on whatever the situation. You don't get a do-over. You can now, and whether it's getting beat deep at corner, whatever, that's you have to kind of press clear in a way of moving forward and playing with confidence. But yeah, it's guys don't probably fail enough in reality, whether it's playing outside or doing all the things that we used to do back in the old days when life was in black and white. But I think that's part of it, for sure.
Warren, you take the microphone back to Preston.
You guys talk about responding to losses. You had an early season loss last year to Michigan State in September on the road against a Big Ten team. Did you learn anything from that loss that you can maybe apply to an early season loss like the one you guys just had?
There were a lot of similarities. Yeah, I think we probably, looking back on that, we probably we didn't play very well on special teams in this game. We played pretty well on special teams at Michigan State. We were better offensively in some regards than we were there, and had a bunch of chances to win it at the end. And so, yeah, I mean, there's things you can take from that. This team, like every team, is different, not only year to year, but week to week. And who's available, who's not, who's growing up, who kind of checks those mistakes off their list and matures and improves. And so, yeah, I mean, hopefully we can speed that process up.
So one more question.
Just a quick follow-up.
Go up to Warren.
Just a quick follow-up. Mark, do you have a follow-up or a report on Brendan Schooler? Just maybe, has he practiced? He was walking today. Will he be back on Saturday?
I certainly hope so. I sure hope so.